Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Joey, I created a monster.
Uh-oh.
My 8-year-old Betsy now is texting.
What?
Now, you know
She's
that
too young for that. Come on.
She doesn't have her own phone, so it's my phone. But she met a little friend when we were gone at this conference, and she, we exchanged numbers, parents' numbers, so that way that they could text each other. They also exchanged addresses. I think they're sending some letters. But every single night, all she wants to do is get my phone and text her little friend, who's up in Philadelphia. It's like, it's crazy. And then I've got this, my other daughter, she connected with a friend while we were there, and I got to connect with the dad. And I called him up afterwards because I'm just really excited about the relationship. And he was sharing with me this book he was reading. It was called Real Estate Note Investing. I thought, well, he's, a very successful guy, very interesting. I'm like, I love learning. So if I find somebody, I want to figure out what they're learning. I bought this book, Joey. It's been so awesome. I've been learning crazy amount of information about real estate and how the different ways you can invest in it. But then at the end of it, it's so crazy that it's telling you, oh, by the way, we use this life insurance to buy the real estate that we're doing. This infinite banking concept. This is how you can get free insurance and still invest in your real estate. I'm like,
that's hilarious.
It's just small world when you start getting in networking circles. But that's kind of what this whole episode today is about. It's about networking.
That's right. And, networking that comes with a lot of preconceived notions. In fact, you and I probably wouldn't have said we love networking 8 years ago.
I will tell you, I used to hate networking because my thought of it is I'm going to show up at a Hilton, at 8 a.m. and pass around cards. That's just the worst.
Think about the last time you went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. And maybe I'm just beating up on that, but it's just a meat market. It's just a bunch of people standing around, and they all got their name tags on. They're all pushing cards in front of your face. They're seeing how many people they can meet in the amount of time, and for what reason they all walk out and dump the cards in the trash can before they leave.
Yeah,
that's not profitable.
Well, and that's really not what we're going to talk about today at all. We're going to talk about how we've transformed the network, how we built our database, how we built our connections of people all over the U.S. And it's amazing that this is not really hard to do when you understand some very basic principles. And you and I were at a conference about 8 years ago in which we learned a lot of these traits, skills, processes, whatever you want to call them. It's amazing the impact that's had on the lives that we've been able to connect people with, because what I've learned about networking is it's not about me.
That's right. And just to kind of put this in perspective, we are all about trying to educate our clients on what the best investments that they can make, right? So invest in yourself is the first step. Invest in your business, the second step. And the third is obviously use a system that's going to help you to grow those things. So investing in yourself is educating yourself on a skill like networking, and then implementing that to grow your business. You're going to get the best ROI on the time and the energy and the money that you're going to spend on this.
So we're going to jump into some very specifics on time. You mentioned time. That's important. I said a second ago, it's not about me. It's not about us. It's about others. You must be thinking of others. The way you're going to grow your business and networking is stepping out of how does this help me?
Building value.
How can I build value and advance others?
And so everybody is listening to this right now. They're looking to grow their business, right, Russ? And you can do that a million different ways. You can go out and buy leads. In fact, a lot of my clients, as you know, are real estate agents, realtor teams. They can go buy leads. They can go knock on doors. They can go send direct mail pieces, so on and so forth. But really, what are people looking for? They're not necessarily just looking for business. They want a business that they love.
And could you love one in which you were making cold calls?
Yeah, think about that. Are you really excited every morning to go in and just get hung up on 50 times?
Well, speaking of that, how many times does your phone ring? It's this off-brand number. You're like, should I answer it this time? It could be somebody I know. And I answer, and it's 3-second pause. hey, this is John. I'm like, click. Like, God, I mean, what does John do with his life? Like, that's brutal. That's not what I'm into. But, networking sometimes, why is it that we don't get into this? It's those limiting beliefs. Like maybe there's not people that I can serve. Maybe there's not people who want to hear from me. Maybe I don't feel like I know everything there is to know about whatever it is that I do in my business. I have no plan of action in order to do it. I mean, there's lots of things.
Well, before you and I learned this, we didn't have a plan. It wasn't on our calendar. It wasn't something that we understood the ways in which to approach this. So it's intimidating, right? I mean, it's intimidating to just pick up the phone. In fact, we're going to be highlighting parts of the book, Michael Mayer's 7 Levels of Communication. That's where really the foundation where we kind of started this journey. In that, he talks about how when you are calling with the express purpose of somebody's going to be serving you, the phone feels like 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
I think that's a great picture.
Well, think about that. Just imagine yourself, and every one of us have done it in some shape or form when we've been in an environment, cocktail party, Sunday school class, kids event, and somebody comes up to you, introduces themselves, and then, you go to tell them your name, and you realize as you're telling them your name, you've already forgot what their name was.
3 seconds later.
Like, how is that possible? Like, are we literally able to forget something in 3 seconds?
It's unbelievable.
I mean, this is like, what are we, like Dory on Finding Nemo? I mean, but what's the motive behind it? Why, Joey, are you not remembering somebody's name?
Because you're always thinking about, what can I say next? What am I after? How can this person be a client, or how can this person help me?
Which that's what challenges me in this is we sit down, and there's lots of books on this. I love Dan Sullivan and a lot of things that he says. And one of the things he breaks down is, what are the characteristics of someone that you want to be doing business with?
Right. And we've actually been challenged recently. Our friend Jason Lowe shared this with us as well. Think about the characteristics of that person. Are they teachable? Are they friendly? Are they motivated? I mean, you get to choose who you want to do business with.
Yeah, when I think of people that I want to do business, that's exactly what you said. They're responsive. They love family. They are high energy. We've got to think about who it is that we really want to serve. Who is it that we want to be working with? So I challenge you right now, go and write down at least 8 characteristics of the person you want to be working with. So when you go out to network, and network can mean lots of different things, you're seeking out people who fit that mold. And the only way you're going to find out if they have those things is that you're asking them questions. Right. That means you're not talking the whole time.
Right. We have some great tips on that here in just a few minutes we're going to talk about. But really, let's back up a second and let's talk through how in the world you and I even came to this conclusion. It was about 8 years ago, like you said. We actually started reading that book, 7 Levels of Communication, Michael Mayer. And we actually joined a group of people that ended up bringing him to do a conference.
Well, I mean, it was pretty interesting that you, me, and probably 6 other business owners here in town got together, created a board of directors, and literally said, all right, we want to have an event that's going to help our business community grow. And we're going to bring in a speaker who teaches on how to build generosity, how to create relationships in order to build your business. And from that mastermind of people, we end up getting over 100 people at an event, brought this speaker in from Missouri to come and do, it was an all-day event. It was a pretty big show for us back in those days to put together. And it was awesome content. The information that we learned and environment that we were in to share with others has transformed the way I think about building relationships with people to this day.
Right. And even that led into that group that spun off of that. We had like mastermind groups that kept going and meeting, was every week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, but we really kind of focused in on learning this new skill. And that's part of what we teach is invest in yourself. And that's really something I point back to that was pivotal in my career.
But see, we made mistakes long before that, right? And thankfully, we were introduced to different ideas that helped us transform. And if you're looking at this, you're saying, hey, look, my goal as an entrepreneur is I want to grow my business. And I want to grow my business to where I become a business owner. Because we don't want to always be self-employed. We want to move out of that S quadrant, as Robert Kiyosaki says in the cash flow quadrant. We want to move from self-employed, which is solo, selfish. We want to move to the B quadrant where we're actually helping others and we have people working in our business for us instead of us having to work in the business.
Yeah, and we want to enjoy the business. We don't want to just earn an income. We want to do it in a way that we enjoy. So we're not going to go into every single detail today about what we learned because I want you to buy the book, learn this for yourself, but we're going to highlight a couple things I think that were really, really beneficial for me.
And here's the first thing I think of is you got to plan for what you want to happen. If you start off Monday and you're like, okay, what am I going to do today? Or what am I going to do this week? You've already lost. I remember when I was reading 7 Levels of Communication, how he talked about the guy planning out what he was going to wear every single day for that week. That was already planned out. I mean, some of us may look at that and say, that's silly. Like, really, I need to plan out my outfits? But no, it goes into like, we need to be programmed and have things so set that our mind can focus. I mean, I'm going to throw lots of different ideas at you at this stage. And that's where, that's why sometimes
we'll try to keep it between the ditches.
I get called the idea guy because of that. But, Dan Sullivan, I mentioned his name before. One of the things I follow in his model, Joey, is he has focus days, he has buffer days, and he has free days. Now, what do you think happens on a focus day?
I will say I have not implemented this the way that you have. On a free day, is that what you said?
I said focus day.
Focus day. I am thinking that is going to be when I'm focused in on just my business and trying to build business on those days.
So yes, but more specifically, that you're only doing income producing activities.
Okay.
I mean, that you're only doing the things that are going to produce income for you and your business on that day. What do you think you then do on buffer days?
I'm thinking that that's going to give you a little bit more flexibility with your time. And I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
Well, so there's free days. Free days is where you're going to go like take the kids to the lake, right? That's going to be the day when you go to Chuck E. Cheese or maybe it's go to the pool. Maybe it's sit in the house and watch TV with people. I don't know what your free day looks like, but your buffer day is preparing all the activities that you're going to do on your free day and all the activities you're going to be able to do that prepares you for your focus day. And where I look at my schedule at the very beginning of the week, I plan it out to have these focus days where I'm 100% focused on doing only those things. What days am I going to be free? So when I go home, because we're challenged by that. Several episodes ago, we talked to somebody, we talked about balancing life and work.
That's right.
And we've got to have that balance. Well, if we don't have free days, then we're not truly balancing. We're always working. That's where buffer days come in.
I think the whole point of that is that your calendar can easily manage you if you don't have it set out. And a couple things I just want to mention about using your calendar wisely as it relates to networking specifically is he talks about in the book having an hour of power. And I think he even mentions it's every day, but even if it's 3 or 4 days out of the week, that you can have one set aside hour. And during that time, he talks about calling to look for people that you can add value to. All right. So how different is that phone call when you call the people that you know and love and trust in your network and say, man, I am looking for, let's say you're a real estate professional and you're like, I want to really have a dynamite termite person to refer business to. And you call up your best friend and you say, hey, do you happen to know a termite person that I could get to know? I want to start sending them some business, but I need to, really get to know their business. I mean, that's a totally different phone call than, hey, I wondered if you wanted to buy or list a house with me this year. That's going to be a harder conversation than asking for somebody that you can refer, right?
Well, I remember whenever I was applying this to my business and I wanted to find like a great CPA, I called my top clients and I said, who are you using as your CPA? I want to have someone that I can refer people to because I get questions all the time on taxes. Who is it that you're using? And then I asked them, hey, so rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. And I did that with my top 5 clients and I got different names. I got one name a couple of times. And it was funny that whenever I was going through that process, that not everybody ranked their CPA as a 5. And it was really, I actually had a situation where somebody said, well, Yeah, I actually don't like them at all, but just out of convenience, I just keep using them, which I relate to because there's a bank that I've done business with for 10 years that I would drop tomorrow, except for the fact it'd take me 2 weeks to unravel everything that I've got involved with, all the direct deposits and stuff. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. And that's where we are in life. And so when I actually went and met this 5-star CPA that was referred by a couple of people, I went back to the person who told me that they hated their CPA. And I said, you know what? I actually met a 5-star CPA and legitimately they are a 5-star CPA. And I connected those two people.
How cool is that?
It was awesome.
Yeah, you become the connector in that situation, which leads me to the next thing that I really implemented years ago was the network stack.
What's that?
So a network stack was I identified a restaurant that I really loved.
And I know that was a difficult part for you.
You know I like to eat, but happened to be a little steakhouse over here in Homewood and had a private room in the back. So I met with the owner. I said, hey, listen, every week I want to have 3 or 4 people I want to introduce to your restaurant. I'm going to bring them in here. I'm going to take up probably 3 or 4 hours of your time, and I need to have a specific place. Now, you have to check that ahead of time because if you start sitting somewhere for 3 or 4 hours, they're going to be like, hey, you must go. You need to get out of here. I'm trying to turn over this table. But you're going to spend money there. You're going to eat with them. You're going to buy drinks, whatever you're going to do. Well, what we did is we set up a lunch. Then at 1 o'clock, we had another person come in. At 2 o'clock, had another person. And some days I even had a 3 o'clock. And at each one of those interactions, I tried to connect the person that I had lunch with the person that was coming at 1, and then meet them. And then the same with the 1 to 2. And you will be surprised how now your perception to the people that you're meeting, first of all, the whole meeting was about them in that network stack meeting. And then secondly, you're connecting them to somebody new that they don't know. It's amazing, just your perception. You become the connector.
So what specifically did you do in that meeting? Because if I'm listening to this and I don't know what you're talking about, it's like, great, I can go find a restaurant. I can sit in there for 3 to 4 hours. I can meet 3 or 4 different people. But what specifically were you talking about?
All right, that's our second step in this whole deal is to ask great questions. And this is another thing I felt like I learned through this process was you have to start with a couple of little tips. He said, think about there's a frog on someone's head. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? That's kind of silly. But think about asking them questions about their family. What recreation do they like? What's their occupation? And then their goals. And that was just a good kind of a break the ice, get to know somebody, that kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, you want to know if this is somebody you want to do business with. If you ask them the questions like that, one, nobody ever stops to ask them those. So that's already putting you ahead. And then number 2, it's also giving you a chance to almost interview them. Like, do I really want to do business with this person?
Well, this frog concept, by the way, I've used this and it comes to mind every time I get in one of those awkward scenarios where I meet somebody, it's at a swim meet and, I get introduced to a dad and we're sitting next to each other on the bench. You went through the pleasantries of whatever you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, now that was 30 seconds. What are we going to do for the next 7 hours? Right. And I think back to that frog. I do all the time. And I'm like, okay, F, not that kind of F. It's like, tell me about your family. Like, what other kids do you have? Are they swimmers? I mean, I use this to this day. It is like one of the best tools that I learned. And
so simple.
Just how to be able to have conversation with people. And what I've experienced in it is I don't have to talk a whole bunch because that's really the nervousness that some of us have when we get in new environments. Just like, really feel awkward talking to people that I don't know.
People love to talk to you about these things. Just nobody ever takes the time. I mean, if you really are networking with somebody, remember the last time someone ever asked you about your family. What do? They say, oh, what is it you do for a living?
Yeah, they want to get into your business.
You go straight into that occupation piece. You've missed. Man, you may have a great connection with somebody because they love to play golf and you do too, or they love to swim and whatever. I mean, that could be the start of something great. And you've only focused on what they do.
I will say I'm glad that, you and I never met early on, because if like we would have met when we were in high school, I don't think we would be the friends that we are today.
No, that's pretty much a given.
Well, I mean, a very dysfunctional story. So it's easy to skip past that. But later in life, I think maybe that goes into the questions that you asked toward the end of the meeting, which I think is powerful.
No doubt. In fact, just this week, I know you and I have been in some meetings with some folks, and we've actually implemented this, is the 3 power questions that I think have dramatically changed the way people view us. Is the first one is always, what is your biggest challenge? As simple as that question is, I mean, think back to even this week, we had a couple people we met with that we asked that question. And even yesterday, I remember we were talking to this guy, he's a real estate investor, does business on a very high level. We were trying to talk to him, and it was almost like he was trying to figure out, well, what are these guys' angle? Like, it was a little bit awkward at the outset. But when we asked that question, explain, like, how did that meeting change?
Well, I saw the walls come down. You really could see how it was like, oh, wait a second. In certain scenarios, they call this a pattern interrupt because somebody's mind's racing down one area. And all of a sudden you introduce something that's different and it makes people stop. Here in Alabama, we do that in deer hunting. If you see a deer running through the woods, you whistle and the deer literally will stop. And so then you can shoot it. But that's really what's happening is our mind's racing and we're going down this one path. And I saw that yesterday when we were talking to this guy, because this guy, I mean, you said real estate investor, that's pretty small level because really he's running a real estate management company, a real estate turnkey marketing thing where they're doing 250 properties a year with investors nationwide. They also have a development and conservation company that's land management, everything else. And of course, I'm sure there's people nipping at his heels all the time trying to get a piece out of him. We only went there because we were looking, is this a good outlet for our client? We're kind of doing our due diligence. Like, is this a place where we should be referring our clients to and introducing them? And when you ask that question, what's your biggest challenge? I could totally see like the arms that was crossed. Yeah. Arms went down. Yeah. Face lit up and he started really engaging it. The first thing that he said though was like, for the business? And you're like, no, really for you. That kind of gave him like deeper thoughts, like, well, really nobody's asking me that question except maybe close friends. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think, it puts you in a position that, one, nobody else is doing. And so it immediately separates you from the pack and immediately says, I'm concerned about your best interest and I'm not the first one being served here. And I'm putting myself behind. And that's why I don't like networking in the traditional sense, is that it's all about me focus, where when you use these sort of concepts, you sit down with people and you're asking them, what are the challenges they're facing? What are their family's goals? You're really focused on them and how can you help them? But third, it goes back to, okay, how are you going to follow up on that? Because by the way, we've got some follow-up. We were given some great information from these people, things that they're challenged with. And since you and I are reading constantly, we're talking to people all over the country, we've got tons of resources. And so following up on when people tell us what their challenges are is, let me connect you to this person and see if they may be able to help you with what you're struggling with. Yeah. And that's the last step of this is, well, let me back up. We said, what's your biggest challenge? The follow-up question should always be, what have you done so far? And then the last one is, what is your next step? And so what I love about that kind of order, maybe it's just because I'm a guy. All you guys out there, your wife is telling you something that she's dealing with. What do we want to do right out of the gate? We want to fix it, right? Yeah. But these questions really push the person to do their own introspection. What have they done? What are they going to do? You're not telling them what they should do. Well, what's important about that, and even staying in our marriages, is that we walk into a scenario that they've been dealing with probably for a little bit. And if we can offer a solution in 2 seconds, it's going to come off bad. Right. Even if it is the most perfect solution to the problem, if you can solve it that quickly and that's what they would declare as their biggest challenge, it's not going to make them feel good. Right. And so when you do what you say, you ask the question of like, what have you tried so far? And then what is it that you're going to do next? Well, it makes you not assume, right? Because you now know the whole story. You get more details. And if they really want a solution, they're going to ask for it. Well, what do you think I should do? So give me an example of how you used this in your business and grew a relationship that ultimately ended up growing your business. The one that really comes to mind, Russ, is my good friend Jenny Williams. She's a marketing coach for realtors.
And I have asked these questions of Jenny over the years. And of course, they change. Challenges are not the same every day. But I've always made it my point to get with her and to try to connect her with the people that will, fix that challenge, whatever it is that she's facing.
And so by helping her with those challenges and connecting her to people, what were things that have happened because of that?
I mean, if you want to think about it, think about Jenny is the tree. And all these people that she's connected me to as a result, it probably accounts for about 20 to 25% of my client base can all be traced back to Jenny.
So your relationship with her, helping her solve her problems, and as you said, it's been multiple problems that or challenges that she's faced, and you connecting her to people has now resulted in like 20 to 25% of your business growth?
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that brings up a good point that when we are really thinking about networking the way that we're talking about, we actually teach people to do the great retrace, as he's talking about. When this is part of the whole giving and giving and giving, this is like that third step. Whenever I get referred to somebody new and I can trace back to that person, I can say, hey, thank you so much for referring so-and-so. That was great. She just became a client and I'm so grateful. Just wanted to let you know how that referral worked out. If I keep that going back to the person that person referred me to, and that person referred me to, I'm probably calling Jenny, again, 25% of the time because she's connected me at the base level to all these other connectors.
And by the way, how does that make someone feel when you call them to thank them for something that they weren't even directly related to?
Oh, man, it is so powerful.
But see, this is not networking, but it is networking.
Absolutely. They're more motivated then after getting a call like that. They're thinking to themselves, who else can I connect them to?
I remember in that book, The 7 Levels of Communication, he said there's 2 reasons why people won't refer you.
What is it? They don't trust you or know you?
Well, actually, he said it was 3 reasons. The first reason, they don't even know you exist.
Yeah.
But let's assume they know who you are. The first reason is that you don't ask them.
Right. That's huge.
The second is that once they refer you, you don't thank them.
That's
you don't
huge.
acknowledge it. And it may not be that, oh, I'm ticked off that Joey didn't call me or send me a thank you card or send me a gift basket. It's not that. It's that, well, because you didn't thank them, maybe you didn't need it. So it's like, okay, well, we always love to help. That's
Right.
what I loved about this whole concept. It was about giving. It was about going out and finding ways to give to others and setting goals. As you know, like whenever we went through this whole process, I set a giving goal.
Right.
Really,
Explain that.
my
'cause I don't think-
tagline on my signature that I sent out on my email said, my goal this year is to give 200 referrals.
Okay.
Please
How
let
did
me
you
know
come
if
up with that number?
Well, because I wanted it to be at least twice the amount of people that I wanted to be introduced to that year.
Okay.
So I
that was
knew
the
that
formula.
I wanted to have 100 people that I want to get introduced to that year. It was all I could take. And so I said, well, I want to give twice the amount that I get back in return.
How challenging is that, by the way? I mean, we talk to business owners, entrepreneurs every day. They all could spout off Q1 results. They can all spout off, well, this is what our goal is this year. I mean, what the guy yesterday said, we want to get to 240 homes this year. But if we ask somebody, how many referrals do you want to give this year?
That's
You're going to
probably
get a
not a
blank
metric
stare.
people are tracking. And if it's important to you, you will track it. And if you think about it in the standpoint that networking is about how you give, it's not about you. It's about going out and meeting and building relationships with other people that you can then help. Then you become a connector. And Joey, there's nobody in Birmingham that's more connected than you are. People come up to us. We can't go out to eat without you shaking 15 hands. I was like, it's like, who is that? People are looking at us like, is that Burt Reynolds? Is that some sort of politician? Like, this guy knows everybody.
Well, I can attribute it back to the years of doing this over and over and over again. And we could keep going all day about this topic because this book, we haven't even really covered, the tip of the iceberg.
Go to our show notes. We'll have a link so you can just go buy it right off Amazon. By the way, I think whenever we were going through this book, it was like number 1 on Amazon in its category. I don't know where it stands today, but it's a very good book. It was written for the real estate community, but as you know, my background in finance and dealing with all sorts of different business owners, I felt like it applied so well. I think that if you start taking these action steps, just a couple things I want you to do after listening to this. I want you to read the book, and in it, it's going to challenge you to write a power note. A power note, Joey, is a thank you note, right?
That's right. It's a thank you note on steroids, though, right? He has very specific things that should be included in that. And those things are, he says, write rightly, which is kind of make your text slope upward to the right. And he said that kind of presumes positivity or an upward motion that just kind of has a different feel than just a regular linear note. He also says use blue ink for some reason that just looks more authentic, and that kind of thing. And then always make the note about that person, something that you admire in them that you don't have yourself.
I'm always like looking for people who are organized, detailed, on time, responsive. Those are traits I would like to increase in myself. So I seek those out. So those are the ones I put in my notes.
And use the word you and us, try to stay away from I, me, my, that kind of thing. And then always have a call to action in the PS. So you mentioned something about this before, like you used to use this a lot.
Yeah, I would write a PS at the end, and it would usually be after I'd have a meeting with somebody and I'd ask them, hey, what is your biggest challenge? And the follow-up questions to that. And of course, being the problem solver that I am, I would have something I would want to provide to them, maybe point them in their direction. And so I'd say, PS, thought about your challenge on fill in the blank, give me a call. And when they would call me, I would be able to answer that. I would give them opportunities, to share the ideas that I had. And it gave me chances to really think through, did I really have a solution, or was I just jumping off the hip, which I'm bad to do sometimes. But those are great things. And I want you to take this action step that you think of your mentors. You need to have mentors if you don't. But if you have mentors, think of the people who are the most influential in your life. And I want you to write a power note to each one of those people and go through that process of just thanking them for the things that you admire in them.
So powerful.
Really short, very to the point, very quick. We don't get enough notes. I mean, our kids, man, every day, yesterday when I came home, your daughter, Lily Kate, I sent a note home to Kate. She gave me this big hug like I didn't. Like so bringing home this note from your daughter.
They're pen pals and they live, 20 minutes away.
Well, they love getting notes. We all do, right? It's a lost art in the world of technology. And I will say this, we missed this early on. I wanted to bring this up, is that in networking, in connecting with people means that we have to disconnect from technology. It means that we can't have our phones sitting on the table in front of us. That is the one thing that I am trying my best to avoid, is taking my phone into restaurants, taking my phone into meetings, because it's going to start trying to draw our attention. It's going to be the noise. It's going to distract us from really building relationships. Mm-hmm. And like we said a second ago, how quickly is it where you miss what somebody says because you're thinking about something else? If you look down and you see, oh, I got a text message. Oh, is that from my friend, my wife, my best client, whatever it is, you're now not focused on that person. And they know it.
Oh, it's obvious.
And
absolutely.
It is a complete killer. Our goal is to grow a business. Our goal is to grow our relationships with people. Those are great things. And so I'm going to put in our show notes. There's some things I want to put my calendar, like just my ideal week, the way I look at it. Because whenever I first started this, I had no idea how to start. I had to look at the coach that I was following. So I'm willing to share that with you. You also thought of another thing from the
some
book?
People that may be thinking, okay, I don't even know where to start with who. So there's an actual tool that the 7 Levels book has. It's called the Mind Jogger. And it goes to a list of 1,000 different people that you probably know in your network, but you never thought about including them. And so this will give you something to look over and to be reminded as you're building out this plan. Because at the end of the day, this is really about you becoming a connector and you enjoying your business, living abundantly. We want this to kind of get you to that next level and to have joy. I mean, there's so much joy that comes in serving others. We get more out of it every time.
Yeah, not being selfish, not being kind of drained at the end of the day. When you're energized in your business because you're really loving what you're doing, you're connecting with people, you're helping people, there's no better day. I mean, and we are rewarded all the time for the value that we create. So people say, man, I'm underpaid. And my answer to that is false.
You're not adding enough value.
You're not adding value. If you add value, you will be compensated in some way or not.
Absolutely.
And this is what this is about, because we go from going to events and being like, I don't want to have to tell people what I do. I don't want to have to try to connect with people, to really now go and say, man, who can I meet? Because this person can become a resource in my network. One of my best experiences in this, I'll share this as we end, is that I went to a networking group after I did this and I had a completely different opinion. I'm going to figure out about people. I met a lady that was in PR, and I didn't have a need for PR at the time. But what I found out about her is that she also on the side had a kayaking coaching business. Whitewater kayaking was something I was really interested in.
That is random, by the way.
And I started taking my best clients on a kayaking trip where she taught us from never being in a boat to literally going down Class 2 rapids, which is pretty calm, by the way. When you're doing it for the first time, it's like you're going down Niagara, right? I mean, it's like craziness. And that has been the best building of relationships I've had. I've done that every summer. And I went to this networking function really to try to learn. I met a lady. I had to go deeper than figuring out what her surface level business was to find this. And the relationships I've built because of that, it's been huge. My business has grown exponentially. That is a huge thing. So I just encourage you, take this idea of networking. Don't look at it in the traditional sense of how do I serve myself, but how do I go out and serve others? And just a few of the keys. This is awesome.
Yeah, so thank you guys for listening in. I hope that this, again, gets you to that next level, become the connector, and we'll join you again next time.
Joey, what did you love about that episode?
Man, I think there's just something so cool about giving to others, and yet it has to come back to you. It's like impossible to send referrals and other things to other people and add value and it not come back to you.
Isn't it just like what we talked about with opportunities, find cash earlier on in our podcast, where we said when you let the market, you let the universe know what you're looking for, it just comes back in spades.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just over the time, I mean, I've known you this long that as we have implemented some of these things, I've seen it grow your business. You've seen it grow my business. And so I feel like we're talking about things that people know, but if you implement, it just makes a dramatic change.
But it's so much better though, whenever you have the mindset of going out to help others versus just focusing on yourself. We have so many things we've got lined up for this summer where we're going to different networking opportunities. But if I saw them as a networking opportunity, I totally would not be in. I'm just not a networker by trade. I'm listening to this book called Captivate right now.
Yeah.
And it demystifies the idea that you need to go be at all places just for the sake of being there. It's like find the places that are the places you thrive in. And focus on those areas. But the places where you just survive, where you go, you don't like it, you don't enjoy being there and talking to people, avoid them. Don't go do them. It's a waste of your time. You're not adding value to other people and you're not adding value to yourself.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great takeaways. I think it's practical what we covered today. And I'm just feeling like a lot of entrepreneurs can gain some value from this.
Well, we mentioned the book, 7 Levels of Communication. There's lots of other books that you can go out and read and look at of how to be a better relationship-oriented person, someone who's going to go out and try to give first and not receive. The Go Giver, that's a great book. And I'd tell you to go pick that one up. That's another one that you could figure out ways to add value to the universe that will ultimately have some reciprocation involved in it.
Yeah, so make sure to go to our show notes. We've got links in there for the 7 Levels book and some other resources that will be super helpful to you. Don't miss out on that, but also don't miss out on the next episode.
Yeah, we've got Corbett Chandler from Apex Current, one of the bigger dudes we've ever had in our office by far, but even more importantly, the background that he's going to share with how you go in. And I think he used the example of being a ninja or a SEAL team into going into marketing these days because he's competing against the big boys.
Right. And I think a lot of people are talking to the market about digital marketing. What does that even mean? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to cut through some of the jargon out there and how to actually make it make sense for you as an entrepreneur to build your business, invest in your business, and not just throw money at ads and things that just don't work anymore today.
Well, it's hard as business owners. We usually don't have time to think about those things, but we know that the biggest thing that keeps our business thriving is new business, and marketing has to be a part of it. But in today's age, I mean, there's so many avenues where we could go and invest money. And a lot of them, we don't know what the return's going to be. And having somebody, I mean, he talked about having a 7-figure budget at one time and then going and working in a company where he had to literally track every single dollar. You need to know where money's going. I think this is going to be a great interview for you to kind of grasp where marketing has come from and where it's going and how that can impact you and your business.
Yeah. So don't miss out on this next episode. Here's a little clip just to give you a taste of what it's like.
The goal is to create a marketing machine for them ultimately. So we know what we're putting in, what we're getting out, and it creates efficiencies. But I think the fear of what's going on with maybe data, right now currently, but also just not understanding it and being used to the traditional media is buying a billboard, buying a radio spot. But all of the traditional media out there, you're ultimately locked into a contract. I mean, I talked to a company the other day that we were talking about some things, and they bought a billboard for a year. Like with digital media, something's not working, I can turn it off like in 5 minutes. I can turn it off in a second. So you can pivot very, very quickly, change the creative, and you learn very, very fast. And so that is just the advantage that we have over traditional.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.